SIR, Estes Park. Ladies and gentlemen, live from the Ramada Inn, it's the December Breakfast Club of the Rockies, brought to you by Strings and Things for Macrame and Weaving, Harris Furniture of Longmont, the First National Bank, Johnson's Dry Goods, the Estes Flower Haven, and so-and-so. And now here's your hosts, Dottie Mutchler and Dave Thomas.
Good morning.
Good morning.
We'd like to welcome everybody to the Breakfast Club this morning, and we have a good crowd, despite the fact that it's the holidays, and we understand some people do leave Estes Park during the holidays, but there are also a lot of people who come here to spend Christmas here.
Right. They're foolish to leave. I hear the weather in Estes Park is going to be the greatest, and they're going into bad weather.
Did you know, Dottie, that it was last Christmas, just a year ago this Christmas, that my wife and I came here to spend the holidays in Estes Park, and as a result of that visit, we moved here.
Well, good for you.
That's
wise
right.
move.
We thought so. We still do. We have a special treat in store for our listeners and the folks who are with us here in the Ramada Inn today. We have the Select Choir from Park High School. They performed this week at the annual Christmas program, and they did a tremendous job. They did selections from Handel's Messiah. We are later going to be treated to some music from Messiah, but right now we're going to start off and get everybody in the holiday mood with "O Come All Ye Faithful."
O come all ye faithful, joyful and triumphant, O come ye to Bethlehem. Come and behold him, born the King of angels. O come, let us adore him. O come, let us adore him. O come, let us adore him, Christ the Lord. Sing, choirs of angels, sing in exultation. Sing, all ye citizens of heaven above.
Welcome back to the Breakfast Club of the Rockies. We're really delighted that we have so many show up for this meeting, because this is the busy time of the year, and this encourages us, because I think this is a fabulous program. The information and news that you receive here and the interviews have been so fascinating. And those of you that are listening to us, I think if you'd like to have this continue, just notify the radio station. So many people have said, gosh, that Breakfast Club is great, but I don't think you ever express your appreciation for it, so let the station know. Now, my guest this morning is Wilma Glendenning, and she is a many years resident. She hates the word old-time resident, but she has had many, many years in Estes Park, and Christmases galore. So let me introduce Wilma Glendenning.
Thank you.
Wilma, the purpose of this meeting this morning is to let the people know about Christmases in the past. And how many, can we dare tell how many Christmases you've had up here?
60.
Oh, that brought you up as a young babe then. And were there unusual Christmases?
Well, I think my first Christmas started on June 15th when we came to Estes Park in the Stanley steamer. I saw all these evergreen trees, and I thought, oh, everlasting Christmas. I was so little, I knew this is where Santa Claus lived.
Ah, good.
And I don't remember much about the first 2 or 3 Christmases after that, but I went to school where the Prospect Inn is now, the first year. And I remember a program there. Then we moved into the school. It was a brand new high school, which is where the First National, or was where the First National Bank is. And we had an auditorium upstairs, which was probably as big as that stage, maybe a little bigger. And on Friday nights, we always had picture shows there for the town, and all of our programs were there. And I can remember being in a number of school programs, which it seemed the school and the town, of course, was the church was the center of our Christmas. Then they started putting up a Christmas tree at the intersection between the bank and the Hupp Hotel. And at that time, this Foot's store and the Park Hotel were on those four corners. But there wasn't any lights on it the first year or two, and then Dad had the hardware store. And they wanted lights, and of course, Mr. Stanley owned the power plant, and he let them use the electricity. And we used to dip bulbs, little round electric bulbs, in the colors, and I don't know what it was, but it stuck, and it stayed there.
Didn't break the bulbs either, huh?
But, oh boy, what a mess, and we'd color those bulbs for the Christmas tree. And then they started putting colored lights across the street, from one side to the other, on the electric or telephone poles, I don't know which. And somewhere along about that time, the Home Demonstration Club made garlands of evergreens. And they would go from the Christmas tree to the four corners, and they made yards of those things.
It must have been beautiful.
I was talking about the other day to some of the people, and Sybil Kindred said, well, don't forget to tell them how many yards of that we made. And there was Libby Chapman and Millie Watson and Sybil Kindred, there was Mrs. Banks. There was a number of people that you all know probably that worked on those. There was a great many in that club. Then in 1928, my sis said to me, don't forget to tell them Dad started Santa Claus in this town. So I went over to the trail and looked through, and sure enough, in 1928, Dad had a contest in the hardware store. And they had a big Christmas tree in the trail and all kinds of toys, little pictures, and the child that cut it out and trimmed it the best was given a prize, and there were prizes for all other children who came with a parent under 11 years old. And that was the first Santa Claus. About 3 years he did this, and then the town took over the Santa Claus at the school. And then we had the new school building, which I think was finished in 1927.
When was that located?
Where the town hall is now. And I was in the first graduation class in that school. But we had a big stage. It was big enough to play basketball and do all those things. And they used to bring all the kids up over the stage and have Santa Claus. But I cannot remember who Santa Claus was.
Oh, well, you know Santa Claus.
I think Clem Muir was one of them. But I can't remember. Do you know, Frankie?
No, I don't.
It seems to me Clem Muir was for a couple of years, but I don't remember any more.
Did you have any special traditions on Christmas Eve in the area here, or Christmas Day?
No, not that I remember. There was one thing they always did. The Legion always had a Christmas dinner at the old Oddfellows Hall, and there was always a Christmas dance up there, and the Oddfellows Hall is above the Estes Park drugstore, so it used to be, and that was the center of all activities in those days.
Mm-hmm. Now, let me ask you this. Did you do a lot of caroling, or did families get together?
Well, there wasn't much else to do but get together. You didn't get out of town like you do nowadays.
Yeah, that's right.
It took 4 hours to drive to Denver in those days.
You know, there was a story on the wire service this week that I believe they checked back in past Christmases in Denver, and the Weather Bureau checked their records to find out how many white Christmases there had been there, and I was surprised to learn that there had only been something like 8 white Christmases in Denver in the past 60 years. And do you have any idea how many white Christmases there have been in Estes Park?
There's been a lot of them that weren't, but I don't know how many. I can remember one year it was almost like summer. But most of the time we're lucky enough to at least have snow in the mountains and around the area, so it looks like Christmas.
Now, having been here for some time, you've watched the weather. Does the weather we're having now look conducive to Christmas, or are we going to have a white one this year?
I doubt it.
Yeah. All Texans listening, don't pay any attention to her.
There was 1 or 2 years, and or maybe more, I don't remember, that I believe the Quota Club sponsored the Ice Palace in the center of the intersection. They brought in ice blocks and built a palace and had it lighted inside instead of the trees. And that was a beautiful thing. And if you're lucky enough, some years it stayed there for a month or more.
Mm-hmm. It was extremely cold then around the Christmas time, but with very little snow.
We used to have a lot more snow, and it seemed to me more cold weather than we do now. I don't know, but I know we used to ride our sleds up and down the Bank Hill or Lindley Hill, and out in front of our house, across the road on Davis Hill, we used to hold the school ski tournaments and all before they cut it down for a parking lot.
Mm-hmm.
But there was plenty of snow to do all these things.
What about ice skating?
There was lots of ice skating on the river, and we used to skate on Mary's Lake.
How did you get out there? Did you have trouble getting the car started to get a bunch out, or did you walk out?
Heavens no, you poured hot water on them and cranked them up.
Now, in the Christmas celebrations, did they have a lot of them in the churches? How many churches did we have up here at that time?
There was only one, the community church, and I believe the Catholic church was here too. But the community started having their joint programs, I believe in 1930, at the school and the church. Then it became big enough that they could have separate programs.
Mm-hmm. And was the church located at the community church at the same place it is now?
The same place it is now, but of course it was much smaller.
Yeah. But the interesting things that you did around the holidays, did you have friends come up from Loveland or Longmont, or did everybody just have to stay in the area?
Well, if you were lucky, you had friends come in, but most of the time you had just your own family, as I remember. Oh, you could get in and out of town, of course. I think there was one day I can remember in the 60 years I've been here that we couldn't go down the canyon.
Well, that speaks well for Estes Park and our Chamber of Commerce, right?
That was in April, I believe.
Well, we get our heavy snows then, too.
And the Women's Club always had an annual Christmas dance and dinner at the Stanley. And the Stanley Manor was open, I believe, from 1920 to 25, or maybe 1919, and when the Haverals were here.
Now, you mean they were open in the wintertime then?
Yes, they were open in the winter.
Well, so then this isn't an unusual situation that it's open now, yeah, because everybody remarks about that.
We used to have that open always in the winter. And they had the casino open. They always had the dance there.
Mm-hmm.
We have quite a few people, like I was telling Dottie before the program. I came here for Christmas last year, 60 years ago, where there were a lot of tourists. I was a tourist a year ago. Were there a lot of tourists coming in to spend their Christmas here?
There was very little available in the way of hotels except for the Hupp in the National Park Hotel. There were no winter cottages for rent or anything of the sort. And we had families come in, of course, but in those days everyone come in on a bus or usually in some different transportation and rode horseback. They didn't have cars. We had very few cars in Estes Park.
You said you came here on the Stanley steamer. Did how much longer after you were here did they continue to run the Stanley steamers up here?
You know, I can't say for sure, but we came in 1950, and I think they had the white cars there in 1918, the white buses, the old white motor company. And but they drove the steamers as the buses here the first 2 years, I know, after we came here.
Now, when you were going to school here, how long a Christmas vacation did you have?
2 weeks.
Did they still have it now, huh?
Well, they cut it down to a week for a while, but then it was a little hard to get any place in less than 2 weeks' time and back, and the teachers liked to leave and all. Of course, they didn't fly. They went by train and bus, and that was it. They had to have 2 weeks.
Now, where did they get the train then? I understand they had one in Lyons.
There was one in Lyons, but that was mostly a freight train. Usually they went to Longmont and took the bus in or took a train from there.
Well, I really regret that we have run out of time here. We have enjoyed hearing about Christmas in Estes back. Well, you haven't gone back too far. 60 years. Estes Park's been here for a while. but we have enjoyed this very much, and I think the folks out there probably have learned something that they didn't know about Estes Park Christmas, haven't you? Thank you.
We sure thank you, Elma.
We'll be back with more of the Breakfast Club of the Rockies after these messages.
We'll return with more of the Breakfast Club of the Rockies in one moment.
Welcome back to the Breakfast Club of the Rockies. I am sitting one seat away from Dottie. For those who are at home or listening in their cars and can't see us, we are sitting perched upon a stage, and we would like to give some thanks to the middle school for letting us borrow their platform. These are normally used with the band at the middle school, and at one of our breakfast clubs, I believe 2 months ago, some of our people who were here in the audience with us said they couldn't see us, so we brought this in. I wanted to give credit where credit was due for the platforms. And also, Dottie, I believe you would like to give a word of thanks to someone else.
Yes, I'd like to give a sincere, warm thanks to the ESA for decorating this room at the Ramada so beautifully. They are having their Christmas dance here tonight, and it will start at 9 o'clock, and the decorations are just gorgeous. So everybody get your best bow and gal and come on out. The tickets are $3 a couple, and I do have some here. I'm not an ESA member, but I enjoy selling and having a good time. And so do come. Tickets may be purchased at the door, and come and have a fun evening and start the season off just great. Thank you, ESA.
And also, we'd like to thank the select choir from the high school for coming to be with us. We're going to hear from them later on in the program at about 9:30 or so. We're going to hear some selections from Handel's Messiah, and they're also going to help close out the program with some Christmas carols at the end of the program. And we appreciate their taking time off from their classes. I know they really miss being in school today. This is the beginning of their Christmas vacation, and after 3 o'clock this afternoon, they will have their 2-week Christmas vacation. We'd like to introduce now a gentleman who many of you probably know. It's my understanding that he's lived here for several years, and at one time was affiliated with the local newspaper. And so he has a lot of stories to tell about his memories of Christmas in Estes Park. We would like to introduce to you Glenn Prosser. Have a seat here between Dottie and I.
Good morning, Glenn. How are you today?
Beast between beauties.
You're right.
I don't know how many caught that. What was that remark?
That was a beast between beauties.
Oh, thank you. Glenn, how long have you lived in Estes Park now?
I was not here the first Christmas. It was 1947.
What was Christmas like in Estes Park in 1947?
Oh, it was really great. In fact, with fewer people, we seemed to have more intimate Christmases, and you could cram nearly all the people in the high school auditorium, and we did.
Now, that was the auditorium of the high school where the municipal building is now, right?
Right.
Okay. You were one of the two people who helped to light the Christmas decorations in Bond Park this year, and during that time you were telling about some of the Christmas decorations that there were in Estes Park. Would you recount some of those for us now?
Well, I'd be glad to, because they are to be credited mostly to the Town Light and Power Department, and we're very proud of it. It was back about, Wilma didn't say so, but one of the reasons that the Christmas tree was removed from the bank corner was that the wind didn't cooperate, and it often ended up down at the east end of the street. So if the big tree was moved to the high school auditorium, and always got one probably from Frank McGraw's place, that
Did he know it?
No, not always. That just barely missed the top of the ceiling, and it was a very high ceiling. Rotary Club brought it in. But it was about 1951, the quota girls, gals, ladies, whatever you call them these days, decided they were going to string lights in Bond Park. And they did, in those trees that 25 years ago were quite a bit smaller than they are now. And it was a wonderful display. And that was the biggest part of the Christmas decoration, except what people did in their individual homes.
I'd like to ask one thing and have you tell our audience, because I think it is a rewarding thing, about our beautiful decorations, the wise men, the shepherds, and Santa and the sleigh.
I'd be happy to, because I believe it was about 1954 or 5, the town light and power department had a gentleman working for it by the name of Eldon Proctor. And during the winter, when he had nothing to do, he decided that he would make some Christmas trees that wouldn't blow away. So he made these aluminum trees that fasten on to the light poles. And in the first year, he made 8. And I have a little paper here that tells how many we have now. I believe it's 100. And it has grown steadily through the years as the light and power department got enough money to buy aluminum. And so we have 100 of them now. And then a few years later, a wonderful sign painter, they called him a sign painter, but he was really an artist by the name of Buell Porter, decided that the nativity scene that the high school kids had made in Bond Park, while it was great, he would make another that would complement it. So he created the nativity scene for Bond Park, and kept doing that each year, or maybe 2 or 3 each year, until now we have 12 displays. You know, the shepherds on Shepherd and the Wise Men on the hill, Santa and his sleigh, things like that. They were all created by Buell Porter through the years from just about 1955 or 6 on.
Could you tell me a little bit about the story behind Christmas in Bugville? That's one of the displays in Bond Park.
No, I've never been able to figure that one out. I don't believe that they had to be figured out. Buell just up and did them, and we thought they were great, so they were put up and lighted.
What about there's a cross on top of Prospect Mountain, and then farther down there's a star, and then a little farther down there's another star. Are those particular displays left there year-round, or do they climb the mountain each year and put them up?
They are left there, but they're not lighted except at certain times. Don Englehart is down here in the crowd. I am quite sure that they are left there, are they not, Don? But it's astounding that the lights that we have around here in the various displays, there are 6,500 of them altogether, bulbs, 6,500 bulbs. And weather and dear people and other things cause quite a few of them to be replaced each year.
In your capacity with the newspaper, you probably did some reporting on some of the unique things that happened at Christmas time over the years. Can you recall some of those things that people were doing unusual around Christmas time?
Well, most of the unusual things, of course, it being a family newspaper, I didn't report. But Well, let's see. What were some of the unusual things? I really don't recall any very, very unusual things. That we had some happenstances that were great, and there were parties by individuals that almost encompassed the entire community, because the community was not large enough to overcrowd houses. And those were some of the memorable things that I do remember.
We don't have much time left. We're going to hear from the choir here again, some selections from Messiah. Could you briefly, reflecting on your experiences here in Estes Park, think of any time that was a particularly warm and humbling time that really touched you as far as the spirit of Christmas reaching the citizens of Estes Park in particular? Something that was done perhaps by a group or an individual that was beyond the call of duty, and something that really...
Well, I think that Estes Park has had a wonderful record through the years, very quietly and without any fanfare whatsoever. There was never a person that we were able to learn about who went hungry at Christmas. We tried to ferret out all of those who were less fortunate than most of us and tried to take care of them. That's just been a normal thing for us to do, and thank goodness we've been able to do it through the years.
It sounds as if Estes Park has continued to be a good place to spend Christmas, and probably that's one of the reasons you stayed here, right?
Yes, I just couldn't think of a better place to go to, so I stayed here. There have been a number of people who suggested that I do go someplace else, but I never did.
Right now, we're going to ask you to take your seat again in the audience. Thank you for being with us.
Thank you, Ben.
And as Glenn takes his seat, we will hear these messages, and then we'll be back with some more music from the select choir from the high school.
You're listening to KSIR's Breakfast Club of the Rockies. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. Now, for those of you who did not make it to the high school for the program Monday evening with the band and the choir, we are going to treat you to some of the music that you missed. This is part of Handel's Messiah, and I will introduce now Claudia Irwin, the director of the select choir, and she will introduce the various selections.
Our first number will be on the glory of the Lord, and the second will be Glory to God.
Shall we
tuned. We'll be right back with more of the Breakfast Club of the Rockies right after this message.
Welcome back to the Breakfast Club of the Rockies.
We thank them for those warm hands.
Yes. I think that Dottie should probably introduce our next guest. I just met the gentleman this morning, although I have talked to him on the phone several times this week.
I'd be delighted to introduce him. My guest is Frank McGraw, and he's going to tell us of Christmas past. So, Frank, won't you join us up here? And his wife, Ruth, is in our audience today, and we'll just have Ruth shake her head yes or no if what he tells us is the truth or not. Frank has a tendency to kind of stretch things a little bit, but they certainly make interesting conversation. Good morning, Frank. How are you today?
Good morning, Dottie. How are you?
Real good.
That's good.
Frank, in one of our interviews some time ago, you sensed a complete audience in hysterics by a Christmas that you had at your home where your mother, Irene, was that her first name?
Yes.
Had sent you into town to get what now is considered, again, a very famous person. Everybody asks me about Fred Tully. I think I'd like to have you start out and tell us about the time you entertained him at Christmas.
Well, Dottie, we didn't only entertain him at one Christmas, we entertained him at many and many and many Christmas. And every time it was a different little procedure that he would go through. Anyway, this one particular time, why my mother sent me to towns to get Fred Tully. He and Shep Eusted and Warren Rutledge were some of the Christmas guests that we always had at the ranch. And of course, Freddie, as Warren called him, at that time happened to be imbibing a little, and so Shep and Warren wouldn't pick him up. So Mother says, Frankie, you go get Tully. So I went in to get Tully, and I arrived at his place over on East Riverside, and he was in bed a little in the cups, and so I went and got some water and poured on him and roused him out of bed and said, now come on, you're going out to the ranch for dinner. And he says, well, that remains to be seen. So anyway, I got him up, and he had about 15 different suits that he bought that he never wore, and I don't know why he bought them, but he also had 15 different pairs of shoes. But anyway, I got him in a real problem. His feet were all swollen up, and so I finally got him into a pair of slippers and loaded him in the car, and we got out to about where your place is right now, and he says, you got to go back. I said, what for? He says, I haven't got my teeth. So back we went, and into the house I go and fish the teeth out of the glass and bring them out and help him put them in his mouth, and away we go. So we get out to the ranch, and of course, Mother, she had known Tully for ever since she'd arrived in Estes Park, and she immediately read him the riot act. But so he sat there very meek and humble at the table, and as we started to eat, we had an ivy plant called Wandering Jew on the table, and as we started to eat, he reached over and he picked off a leaf of that plant, and he ate the whole plant before dinner was over. And that was Tully's Christmas.
Well, this Tully has become, again, like I said, quite a character, because so many people are interested in him, and it's nice, to know that despite some of what we would so-call failings, he was really a well-loved person, too, wasn't he?
Oh, he was a great person. Mm-hmm. Just like all the people that used to be up here. You mentioned... Yeah, that's right. We don't have those kind of people anymore.
Oh, yes, we do.
my first recollection of Christmas up here, there was, I imagine there was between 45 and 50 people around town in the wintertime, and there was just about that much money all winter. And it went from person to person. And all the Christmases up here, the one thing that stood out in my mind was that everybody was poor. There was nobody wealthy. And just like Glenn said a while ago, nobody ever went hungry. They may not have had a turkey, but they had a Christmas basket of some sort. And I know one of the projects before Christmas used to be that some of the fellows around town would. One of their projects was that they would shoot an elk, and they would cut that up and take it around.
What kind of Christmas gifts? You're talking about the people not having a whole lot of money. They didn't have the money to go spend on things. Was there a lot of gift making and making their own decorations and things?
Well, there were a lot of gift making. Yes, I think that I don't think there were a lot of toys and a lot of things like that. I think mostly everybody got clothing and things to keep them warm.
Practical type gifts.
Yeah.
Do you think that we could benefit by seeing a lot more of that today? Practical gift giving rather than frivolous things?
I think so. Yeah, I believe that'd be a real return to something that Christmas has become so commercial that it isn't Christmas anymore. I think we forget actually what Christmas is. It didn't used to be, at least here in Estes Park, there was no Christmas until a week or 10 days before Christmas, and then everybody started planning about Christmas. Now they start in before Thanksgiving and of course
up to the last minute, right?
Right to the last minute.
Glenn told us about decorations in the town. Were the decorations in the homes quite a bit too?
Yeah, I think that a lot of people decorated their homes more. There weren't any things to do. There weren't any places to go up here. So naturally, everybody made their homes as much Christmassy as possible.
Frank, let me ask you this. Did you decorate your tree way in advance? I know as a child, we got up on Christmas morning to see the tree. We didn't even see the tree until Christmas morning. And that was always the highlight of our Christmas.
Well, that was part of Christmas Eve, was decorating the trees. It used to be that practically the only Christmas tree you saw before Christmas was the one that they had at the school for the Christmas program, and of course that was always up before because the school let out so they could have their vacation usually a week or so before Christmas.
Did you furnish many of the trees for the high school?
Oh, many. But luckily, that's one tree I didn't have to cut.
Oh.
What do you remember about the Christmas programs other than the trees? Do you remember what they were about?
Oh yeah, they were great. You got a sack of candy.
And then your mother held it for you so you wouldn't eat it till Christmas.
You wouldn't eat it.
But when you look back on those days, and they say the good old days and the hard times and so forth, but they bring very many pleasant memories, don't they? Because it was a togetherness that I think families felt. And now with people, our mode of transportation being such as it is, they can get hither, thither, and yon, and families kind of separate. But it sounds so interesting here. I think that most of us are envying you that had these Christmas here, where you had this togetherness and the feeling for friends in the area.
A part of the, one of the things that used to be the great thing around Christmas, as far as the town as a whole community, was that they used to have what they called the sewer party, which was held down at the sanitation district. Of course, as after the years went on, I believe, if I remember right, Dottie asked me a minute ago, she says, what are some of the customs you used to have? We always used to hide 50 cents. And then the next day we'd go do something. Well, I said, right now, if I'd hide 50 cents yesterday, today I'd have to spend the whole day remembering where I put it. So I don't remember, but I think if I'm right, Glenn, the Legion finally took over those Christmas parties they had at the sanitation district because the Legion had more access to the milk and cream than the sanitation district did. So,
You know, Wilma brought up something that I hope you remember. If not, we'll get Wilma up here to talk about it. I understand Michael Martin used to have many housewarming or have a housewarming party every Christmas for many Christmases. Is this were you ever invited there?
well, of course, those parties that Michael Martin had, they were after my time as a child. He always did. They always had a great Christmas party for the children, and it was a great thing for the kids, and they all looked forward to going to that party. It's a lot of my Christmases after the war, became involved with my own family.
Oh, that's
kitties.
right.
So,
Michael Martin used to have a dairy up here, and it was my understanding that he had a room for the children, a room for the adults, and then had candies and eggnogs, and it was something that the children looked forward to, and so that is a kind of a nice memory for the old Estes Park.
We thank you for coming to be with us on the program. It was kind of short notice we invited you, but we appreciate you being here.
thank you, Dave.
Always a delight to have you, Frank.
We will return to the Breakfast Club of the Rockies after these messages.
Dave, Dottie, and their guests will return right after this brief message.
Welcome back again. At this time, I would like to introduce to you a man who has been very instrumental in bringing Santa Claus to Estes Park for, the past 30 years, I think. He has an intimate knowledge of the jolly old fat man and pretty close friend of Santa Claus's. We would like to introduce Don Engelhardt, who is here with us this morning. Come up and have a seat there.
Good morning, Don.
Good morning, Dottie.
Don is with the local light and power department, and you've lived in Estes Park for how long now?
Well, we came here in December of 45. Officially made our home here in January of 46.
And it's my understanding that you have played a big part in Santa Claus making an appearance here in Estes Park for about 30 years.
Yes, I'm very grateful for that. The first Christmas that we officially spent here, which was the Christmas of 46, I was asked to be the Santa Claus at the grade school, or the high school, for the Christmas program.
Do you recall any of these youngsters who are in the choir now? Do you recall having them come in to visit Santa Claus?
As a matter of fact, there are some, yes. There are even some adults here who sat on my lap then, and I'm now holding their children on my lap.
What was your is there any particular experience that is the most memorable one for you?
I don't know, Dave. I think that each year becomes more memorable for me. It becomes more precious to my heart. There's a saying that Santa Claus really doesn't come down the chimney, only in the heart. And I believe that. I become more sentimental about it every year. I play only to the children. I do not do adults for their parties. And I try my very best to be as real for the children as I can. I would rather do anything than to spoil Christmas for one child. It's such a short span in their life when they believe in Santa Claus. And I think it's wrong for anyone to take a chance on spoiling Christmas for one child. I sincerely believe that. In Estes Park, there's been many memorable Christmases. I've arrived in many different ways. One time, very memorable for me, was the time that I came in on a skidoo mounted on wheels. I believe Steve Nidus was the driver.
That must have been a harrowing experience.
Very much so. In fact, the matter is, a skidoo was never meant to be on wheels, and the steering is very critical. We were going up the street, and Steve was waving to some of his friends on the sidewalk, and I said, "Watch out, Steve, there's a car." He jerked the wheel, and I almost went off on the street. It's been a lot of fun.
I know that a lot of Santa Clauses, people who play Santa Claus or portray Santa, actually they are Santa's helpers, right?
Right.
These people who are Santa's helpers have experiences in losing garments, articles of their costume. Have any children ever tugged on your beard when you're portraying Santa?
Yes. In fact, they want to know if it's real, and I make sure I have a hold on one side while they pull on the other side. But yeah, I thought maybe you were going to bring up something else. I don't remember what year it was, but we had a carnival in the parking lot. And the suit I wore that year, either I grew or the suit shrank. I don't know which. But I discovered that the pants did not meet the boots. I sent Jack Coffee scurrying around town to find a pair of red stockings. He came back and they wouldn't even come up above my ankles. So I said, "Give me a scissors, Jack." We cut the toes out and I pulled them up so that at least between the pants and the boots they would show red. Now, I also discovered that if I pushed the pants down as far as I could, when I stood up, it met the boot tops. So after we talked to the children, passed out the candy, I was to wander through the carnival rides. And I started to do that, and I felt something drop to my knees.
KSIR Estes Park.
I don't dare look. I did sneak a look down, and the pants were there all right, but the boxer shorts I was wearing was down around my knees. Now I decided that was time for Santa Claus to make his exit, and he did.
Quick exit.
Quick exit. There's been several times when I'd like to tell you about one little experience, and you do have a lot of fun with the kids. They'll ask you the name of the reindeer. Now, you know, I have an awful memory anyway for names. So I start out and name 2 or 3, and then I quickly take on another child because chances are they won't want to know the finish anyway. But I had one youngster of some folks who were dear friends of ours and still are. He's a grown young man now. And I happen to know about where his parents came from and so forth, a little bit about them. So I started telling him that I used to call on his parents and some things about them. And boy, he was amazed that I knew all this. And so I could see that he was believing more and more in Santa Claus. And I said, "Now, you know, it'll be late when I get to your house, so if you wouldn't mind, just leave me a glass of milk and a cookie. And oh, by the way, why don't you leave just a little handful of hay for Rudolph?" Well, I never thought any more about that till a few days after Christmas, and his daddy said, "You and your glass of milk." And I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, 11 o'clock. We put him to bed. We put out the glass of milk and the cookie, and he says, "What about the hay for Rudolph?" Now, he said, "You know, with a foot of snow on the ground, there's not even a blade of grass that I'd get my hands on." I had to dress that boy, and we went out to the rodeo grounds to get a handful of hay for Rudolph. So I've been a little careful about that little thing.
Well, we don't have any young children in the audience here this morning with us in the Ramada Inn. There may be some who are listening at home. We hope they're all in school, and we hope that all of you will keep Don's secret for him, okay?
That would be much appreciated.
Because you'll be Santa next year, won't you?
I hope so. You know, I was going to retire 2 years ago, and I decided, gee whiz, of all these years I've done this, I think it would be terrible to do it just when my grandchildren were coming along. So I'm looking forward to more now.
So are we. Thank you for being
I
with
want to
us.
ask Don one question. Are you going to have to use the pillows this year?
You know, I have never had to use pillows, and I hope I never do, but then we never know.
He has a weight loss.
Thank you.
Thank you, Don.
Ladies and gentlemen, I think you'll enjoy meeting a guest whom many of you have seen innumerable times on television, though maybe you don't know his name. Say hello to everybody, Wally Payne.
Hello, folks.
Into this microphone, Wally.
Hi, hello, folks. I'm Bob.
Get right into the story about how you got into this unusual acting specialization, that of pain and discomfort scenes, Wally.
Well, I started out as a movie extra, Bob, and I was being singled out to play these scenes of someone in severe pain.
You look as though you're in pain right now, are you?
No, not at all. I never felt better, but that just kind of explains the reason why I was chosen for these scenes. It seems even when I'm just standing alone, it looks as if I have a severe throbbing going on inside my head.
So if you half try, you can feign unbearable anguish. Is that right?
Well, that's the truth of the matter, yes. Trying to act normal and healthy and of good cheer as required in before and after commercials is very hard for me to master, Ray.
Bob.
Bob, I mean.
Master Bob.
Bob.
Now, as far as commercials go, Wally, the one I suppose that you're best known for, I guess, is for a major pain-relieving drug. Shows you standing there with a pleasant expression on your face.
Which I put on, by the way.
And then the announcer says, "What happens when a headache strikes?"
Well, then I go into a look of terrible torment, guaranteed to make any viewer shudder.
Then some animated machinery is superimposed over your brain to make the pain more graphic. I really think that that's superfluous because you do the role so well.
Well, thank you, Bob. So I realize I'm not the only one with a pained expression, so I try to keep my mouth shut. Why bite the hand?
That feeds you. Another commercial you do that I admire is the hay fever cold misery one, where you really make it look like those 8 sinus cavities are working full blast.
Well, I actually have 9 sinus cavities. That's why I get such a painful look. And I do have hay fever.
I see.
For realism, we filmed the entire year's commercials in a field of ragweed, and I actually do have hay fever, and I was really suffering in those commercials, Bob.
Now, Wally, of all the commercial roles that you've done, such as sore, aching muscles, dull, piercing pain, the tired, worn-out feeling, which one gives you as a performer the most satisfaction? Could you say?
Well, Bob, I'd have to say the one where I trade a headache for an upset stomach is the most challenging and rewarding. Although severe itching parts gives me a chance to move around a bit and display my dancing ability.
I think I read somewhere that your wife is in this business too, isn't she?
Not anymore, no. She was with the heartburn and headache people, but they went in for a big name, and she was out of it.
Now, Wally, by way of a wrap-up, what if any, are your future plans?
Well, Bob, something a little different for me. We're going to be doing, that is, I am a stint as a sick comic for a while.
Should be good.
Then I have a series of unruly hair commercials coming up for me.
Great.
And then it's off to work on a new pilot for a TV series. It's titled I Married a Hypochondriac, and situation comedy. And we're trying to get Sue Lyon to co-star.
Well, it sounds great, Wally Payne, and we've really enjoyed having you, and the best of health and luck to you.
Thanks. Pain again, as far.
Yes, well, thank you for stopping by.
Do I look all right?
Yes, you look fine, Wally.
You're listening to KSIR's Breakfast Club of the Rockies. We'll be right back.
Dottie, let's go back up on the stage while they leave. You know, we've had a lot of fun doing these programs.
And it doesn't seem possible that we're starting into the summer season again.
That's right, and that means that the Breakfast Club for this season is over.
That's right.
With this one.
But we'll see them all in the fall, won't we?
I sure hope so.
Good. And I think we'd like to thank Paul Clemens, the new manager of the Ramada Inn.
Paul, would you stand? A lot of people haven't met you yet. Paul Clemens, the new manager here.
We want to thank you for allowing us the use of this room. Thank you.
And also, we want to thank Stan Pratt, the owner of KSIR. Stan, would you stand, please?
Stan, I think it'd be marvelous if you would contact Don McNeil and have him join us out here.
And
You've got connections.
And also, we would like to thank, there's so many, I'm sure I'm going to forget someone. Standing over in this corner is Bob Manley, who has set up these tables for us month after month for this program. Bob, let's give him a hand.
The innkeeper.
Sitting back there is the fellow who pretty much conceived the idea of the Breakfast Club and helped to get it on the air from the very beginning, Bob Gaines. He helps to produce the program.
Next year, another pie, Bob.
We have managed to sound good as far as acoustics and all that because of our engineer, Bob Suarez. We thank our announcer, Larry Swank. Dottie, I thank you. It's been a real pleasure to work with you.
And a pleasure. Oh, I love this. Pleasure working with you. I don't think we did that loud enough. Oh, there we go.
And
I'll take advantage of any moment.
And most of all, we want to thank our sponsors for helping us to bring this program to you. Without their help and their financial support, this program would never have come to be in the first place. And right alongside the sponsors are you people who have come to be with us every month. Thank you.
Pleasure having all of our guests, too. And a joy to have you, Ernell.
And join us again next season for the Breakfast Club.
See you next.